The chain clinked against the cold stone floor, a sound that had become my constant companion for the last 5 years. Iron bars cut into my hands every time I fidgeted, every time I paced the small cell. I'd done the time more than any man should, and yet the law still had me by the neck. My name's Jace Callahan, and the world knew me as an outlaw. But that night I wasn't thinking about who I was called. I was thinking about a boy. I first heard the news from old Ben, the jailer with a penchant for whiskey and loose lips. He leaned over the bars with that smirk of his, hiding a story he'd soon regret. "Words come in, Callahan," he said, lighting his pipe with trembling hands. "A boy's been taken outside Silver Creek. They say he's in real trouble. Nothing you can do, though, unless you fancy more time in the pit. Trouble." That word hit me like a bullet. My gut told me it was no ordinary trouble. I couldn't shake the image of a kid in danger. And though I'd sworn off caring about the world outside these walls, something clawed at me, a promise I didn't know I'd made. That night, I sat on the bunk, thinking about my own mistakes, about the lives I'd ruined, about the son I'd never known. I had no idea if this boy was mine. Hell, I didn't even know if I deserved to find out. But deep down I knew I had to try. By midnight I had a plan. The guards were predictable, their routines sloppy. A loose bar, a forgotten latch, and 5 years of pent-up rage and cunning became my allies. I whispered a silent prayer to the desert stars, outside my cell window, the only witnesses to a man about to gamble his life on a boy he might not even know. Chains couldn't hold me that night. The cold air hit me, like a slap as I slipped through the shadows outside the jail. Freedom tasted bitter and electric, and my lungs burned with every breath. Behind me, the distant clanging of the jail bell told me the alarm had been raised. They'd be on my trail soon, but I didn't care. The boy needed me. I didn't know much about him, just that he was taken somewhere near Silver Creek, a mining town on the edge of the Badlands. I had no idea why someone would snatch a kid in this dead-end corner of the world, but instinct screamed at me that it wasn't just a random act. There was something personal behind it, and I had a sinking feeling I might already know. Riding my old black mare Midnight, I pushed her harder than I ever had. Every hoofbeat was a drum of desperation. I kept scanning the horizon, searching for signs of smoke, campfires, or tracks in the dusty earth. The desert was cruel at night, but I had spent enough years running to know its secrets. By sunrise, I reached a small canyon where tracks suggested the boy had passed not long ago. Deep in the sand, I saw tiny footprints beside larger ones, maybe his captor. My chest tightened. The kid was close, but not close enough. Whoever had him wasn't going to be easy to shake off. As I paused to check the trail, a voice echoed through the canyon. Jace Callahan. It was gravelly, cautious, but unmistakable. A bounty hunter, no doubt, with a price on my head. I gritted my teeth and tightened my grip on the reins. "You looking for me?" I called out. "Keep walking and you won't get hurt." The man laughed, a dry, mean sound that echoed against the canyon walls. "I don't care if you get hurt. That boy's worth more than you'll ever be." Something inside me snapped. That boy wasn't worth anyone's greed, he was worth my life. And if this man wanted a showdown, he'd have to deal with me first. The chase had begun and there was no turning back. Somewhere out there in the desert lay a boy, scared, probably crying, maybe even praying for someone to save him. I didn't know yet that the boy I was hunting was more than just another kid in trouble. He was my blood, my son, and I wasn't going to fail him. The sun had barely cleared the horizon when I found signs of the boy's trail again. Tiny footprints, shallow but desperate, ran alongside hoofprints that weren't mine. Someone had been forcing him to move fast. Whoever it was didn't give a damn about him. They just wanted to get rid of him. I dismounted and followed on foot, my boots kicking up clouds of red dust. Every step I took, every turn of the canyon, brought memories of my own lost childhood to the surface. I had been a boy once too, caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. I could feel the fear in him as if it were my own. A broken toy lay in the sand, a wooden horse chipped and weathered. I picked it up. The boy had been scared, terrified enough to drop it while running. My throat tightened, and I stuffed it in my coat. It was a small piece of him, proof he was real and still out there. Hours passed and the canyon widened into scrubland. The tracks led me to a shallow ravine, where a campfire had been hastily put out. Ashes still blackened the sand. The boy's footprints were here too, but they were faint, scattered, as if he had tried to hide or had been dragged. Son of a... I muttered. Whoever took him was smart. Too smart. But smart didn't mean unbeatable. I crouched, studying the area, my eyes scanning every bush, every shadow. Then I saw it. A torn piece of fabric snagged on a branch. It was small, maybe from the boy's shirt. I picked it up carefully. That's when I heard voices. Low, angry and close. Two men arguing about something. I pressed myself against a boulder and listened. He's too young for this. We can't just leave him here. One said, panic creeping into his tone. Shut up, boy snatcher. He's worth the cash. We do what we're told or we're dead. The other barked, my fists clenched. Dead men, I thought. If they were going to touch him, I'd make sure they regretted it. The boy's captors were near and my chance to save him was closing fast. Every second counted. I checked my gun, adjusted the grip on my knife and whispered a silent promise to the boy I hadn't even met yet. I'm coming. Hold on, I won't let them break you. The hunt was no longer just about finding him. It was about facing the men who would do anything to keep him from me. I crept closer to the camp, every step measured, every breath silent. The two men were arguing again, unaware that death had come stalking them in the form of a black-coated outlaw, with nothing to lose. Midnight, my mare grazed quietly a few yards back, ready to bolt at the first sign of trouble. From behind a cluster of rocks I could see them clearly now. One was tall, broad-shouldered, carrying a rifle slung across his back. The other was smaller, twitchy, and clearly the one who had a conscience or at least a shred of it. And then I saw him, the boy, huddled behind a rock, his eyes wide, clutching a worn blanket to his chest. My heart lurched. That's when reality hit me harder than a bullet. The boy's hair, the shape of his jaw, the curve of his little hands. There was something eerily familiar, but I shoved the thought aside, not now. Not until he was safe. The taller man spat on the ground. You think I care about him? I've got orders. That word made my blood boil. Whoever gave them had no idea who they were messing with. Slowly, I rose from my hiding spot, letting the sun catch the glint of my gun. The click of the hammer was soft, but it carried through the desert air. Drop it, I said, my voice low, deadly, and let the boy go. The taller man spun around, eyes wide. Callahan. Yes, and you're about to find out why they call me that. Bullets flew before I even finished my sentence. I dropped behind the rock, returning fire with precision. The smaller man froze, indecision written across his face. I seized the moment, darting from cover to cover, inching closer to the boy. A scream, sharp and terrified, spurred me forward. I reached him, scooped him up, and shoved him behind a boulder just as another shot cracked the air where his head had been. It's okay, kid. I've got you, I said, keeping my gun trained on the larger man. Minutes passed like hours. Eventually, the taller man retreated, realizing he couldn't win a fight with a desperate outlaw, fueled by something stronger than revenge. Something like hope. The boy shivered in my arms. His eyes met mine, wide and terrified. Who are you? He whispered. I swallowed hard. I'm the one who's going to get you out of here alive. I promise. And for the first time in 5 long years, I felt the weight of something other than guilt. I had a chance to do right, to save someone, maybe even myself. But I still didn't know the truth. The desert sun was merciless, beating down as we rode through narrow canyons and scrubland. The boy clung to me like a lifeline, his small hands gripping my coat, his eyes darting nervously at every shadow. I kept one hand on the reins, the other holding him close, feeling a strange, unfamiliar tug in my chest. We'd escaped the first ambush, but my mind kept returning to the way he looked at me, an instinctive, unspoken recognition that made my gut tighten. His hair dark and unruly, his eyes a shade of blue that I hadn't seen in years. I shoved the thought aside. I couldn't entertain it yet, not while we were still in danger. We stopped at a dry creek bed to rest. The boy sank to his knees, panting. I handed him a canteen, watching as he drank. He was quiet, too quiet. You've been running a long time, haven't you? I asked, trying to start a conversation, a way to ease both our nerves. He looked up, tears streaking his dusty face. I don't know why they took me. I was just walking. Something inside me ached. That voice, the way he spoke. I knew it somehow. I shook my head, trying to dismiss it. Focus, Jace, keep him alive. Everything else comes later. We moved again, the shadows of the afternoon stretching long across the land. I kept my eyes peeled, but I couldn't help stealing glances at him. At one point he reached out, brushing his fingers against my arm. A small innocent gesture, but it set off a cascade of memories, of a woman I'd loved, of a night I had lost everything, of choices I'd made that had haunted me for years. Could it be? My mind refused to settle on the thought. Too many coincidences, too many maybes, and yet something deep inside me whispered the truth I wasn't ready to hear. This boy, this scared, shivering child, could be mine. I swallowed hard, trying to push the feeling down. I had a promise to keep. I had a boy to save. Everything else, answers, confessions, regrets, would have to wait until he was safe. But the thought refused to leave me. Every time he smiled, every time he stumbled, every time he looked at me with trust, that gnawing suspicion grew stronger. By nightfall, I made camp behind a ridge, keeping watch while he slept. I lit a small fire, the glow reflecting off the rocks. I stared into it, thinking about the life I had lost, the one I might have left behind and the one I could still save. If this boy was mine, I'd do whatever it took to protect him, even if it meant dying. The night was unnaturally quiet, the kind of silence that presses down on your chest and makes every rustle in the brush sound like a gunshot. I kept one eye on the boy, who had finally dozed off against my chest, and the other on the ridge above us. My instincts screamed trouble was coming. I didn't have to wait long. A faint crunch of boots on gravel gave them away. 3 men, armed, moving cautiously but with purpose. Whoever they were, they had been tracking us for hours. Whoever they were, they weren't leaving without the boy. I nudged the boy awake. "Kid, stay down!" "Don't make a sound," I whispered. His small nod told me he understood, even in his fear. I positioned myself behind a rock, gun ready. The first man crested the ridge, scanning the area. My heart pounded in my chest. I didn't want to kill if I didn't have to, but if they touched him, there'd be no mercy. "Callahan!" one of them barked. "Hand over the boy and maybe we won't kill you." I let out a low laugh, shaking my head. "You don't know me, boys, and you sure as hell don't know what I'll do to protect him." The shooting started before anyone could respond. Bullets kicked up dirt around us. I dragged the boy down behind the rock, shielding him with my body, and returned fire. One of them fell, clutching his leg, screaming, while the others tried to flank us. Adrenaline surged. My every move was fueled by something primal, something older than survival, something only a parent feels when their child is in danger. I blocked, dodged, fired, and maneuvered, keeping the boy safe while taking out the immediate threat. By the time the dust settled, 2 men were unconscious in the dirt and the third had fled into the shadows. I checked the boy, brushing dirt from his face. He trembled, but he was alive. Alive. I took a deep breath, letting myself relax just a little. "See? Told you I'd keep you safe," I said softly, though my voice wavered. He looked up at me, eyes wide. Why do you care?" The question stopped me cold. For a moment I couldn't answer. I didn't know how to tell him the truth I was only beginning to suspect. Because someone has to," I said finally, letting it hang. That night, as the fire dwindled and the stars burned above us, I couldn't shake the thought that had been growing for days. Something about him, the way he moved, the way he looked at me, the way my heart tightened whenever he smiled. It all pointed to one terrifying, unbelievable possibility. He was my son. And if that was true, I had lost him once before. I wasn't about to lose him again. We rode at first light, the desert stretching endlessly around us. Every mile felt heavier, weighed down by the secret gnawing at me. I kept glancing at the boy, trying to read him, trying to see something, anything that would confirm the suspicion I had buried deep in my heart. We reached an abandoned cabin, a hideout I knew well from my days on the run. Safe for the moment, I let the boy rest while I checked the perimeter. My eyes caught a scrap of paper, fluttering under a rock outside the cabin. I picked it up, unfolding it carefully. The handwriting was familiar. My heart skipped a beat. It had been years, but I recognized it immediately. It was hers, Eliza, the woman I had loved and lost. The paper wasn't long, just a note, faded and creased. "If anything happens to me, take care of him. He's yours, even if you don't know it yet." My hands shook. The words, written long before I'd been caught and jailed, confirmed the impossible. This boy, this scared, stubborn, brilliant little boy, was mine, my son, my blood. I stumbled back inside, feeling a mix of relief and guilt. Relief that he was alive, that I'd finally found him. Guilt that I had missed all these years, that I had allowed the world to separate us. The boy stirred, sensing my change in mood. Did you find something?" he asked, voice small. I knelt beside him, placing a hand gently on his shoulder. "Yeah, something important," I said. I couldn't bring myself to tell him the whole truth yet. Not now, not while enemies were still out there. "You're very special, more than you know, and I'm going to protect you no matter what." He looked at me, trusting, and something broke inside me. The weight of years of mistakes, of being too late. It all poured out. I swallowed hard, forcing it down. I had to be strong for him. That night, I sat by the fire, staring at the stars and thinking about the life we'd lost and the one we might still have. I whispered a silent promise to the boy sleeping next to me. "I will never let anyone hurt you again. You are mine and I am yours, always." But the world outside the cabin was far from safe. The men who had taken him weren't done, and I knew the moment we left this hideout, the real danger would begin. This wasn't just a rescue anymore. It was a reckoning. At dawn, we broke camp. The desert was a harsh, unforgiving place, but it was ours to cross. I could feel my son stiff against me in the saddle, and I gripped the reins tighter. Every mile we traveled was a step closer to safety, and a step closer to those who wanted him back. I had a plan, but plans are fragile in a land ruled by guns and greed. The men chasing us would not give up easily. They had orders, and orders in these parts were rarely questioned. They wanted the boy, and they'd stop at nothing to take him. I kept scanning the horizon, noting every ridge, every shadow. I needed a path that gave us cover and slowed down pursuers. The canyon passes were narrow and treacherous, but they offered advantage to a man who knew them like the back of his hand. The boy finally spoke, his voice hesitant. Are they going to come for me again?" I glanced at him, my heart clenching. "Yes, but I'll stop them. I swear it." The words felt heavier than the gun on my hip. He was my son, and I would go through fire, bullets, and blood to keep him alive. Hours passed, the sun burning overhead. Then movement on a distant ridge caught my eye. 3 riders kicking up dust, coming fast. My pulse spiked. "We've got company," I said, my voice low but steady. The boy froze. Are we going to fight?" I shook my head. "Not yet. We move smart. We move fast. And we fight only if we have to." I led us into a narrow canyon, forcing the riders into a bottleneck. My knowledge of the land became our weapon. Rocks tumbled, dust clouds rose, and I used every trick I knew from my days as an outlaw. By the time the pursuers realized what was happening, they were trapped in a maze of our making. It wasn't a perfect escape, they were still out there, but it bought us time. Every mile we put between us and Silver Creek was a mile closer to safety. And every mile reminded me of the fragile gift I'd finally reclaimed, my son. That night, as we camped under the stars, he fell asleep on my chest, exhausted but alive. I watched him breathe, the rhythmic rise and fall of his chest a comfort and a burden all at once. I whispered into the night, promising not just protection, but redemption. I will fix what I broke. I will be here for you. No one will take you from me again. The desert stretched around us, silent but watchful, and I knew that the real journey was just beginning. We crested the last ridge before Silver Creek. The town sprawled below like a patchwork of dust and timber. I could feel it. This was where the fight would end, one way or another. My son stirred beside me, sensing the change in the air, and I whispered softly, "Almost there. Stay close. Don't let go." The pursuers had regrouped, and I could see their figures moving along the horizon. They were smarter this time, more determined. But I had the advantage of knowing the land, the element of surprise, and the fire of a father who wouldn't let anything take his son. I dismounted, leading him behind a cluster of boulders at the edge of town. "Stay down," I murmured. "And remember what I told you, only if you have to." They came into view, guns drawn, shouting my name. "Callahan! Hand him over!" I swallowed hard. I didn't just have to fight for his safety. I had to make them understand that this boy was mine, that I wasn't the same man they had hunted before. I was something worse, a father with nothing to lose. Bullets flew, kicking up dust and debris, I moved like a shadow, dodging, returning fire, and keeping my son shielded behind me. Every shot I took was calculated, precise, my anger tempered by desperation. One of the men lunged at us, knife in hand. I caught him mid-strike, twisting, disarming, and sending him sprawling into the dirt. Another tried to flank us, but I anticipated it, taking him down before he got close. Finally, only the ringleader remained. His eyes widened as he recognized that he was facing more than an outlaw. He was facing a man reborn, a father who had been robbed of years and would not be robbed again. "You don't understand," he sneered. "The boy isn't yours to claim." I stared at him, my gun steady. "He's mine." "And you—" I squeezed the trigger, a warning shot into the ground at his feet. "We'll never touch him again." The words carried more weight than any bullet. Fear and realization dawned in his eyes, and he fled, disappearing into the horizon. Silence settled over the desert once more. I knelt beside my son, brushing dirt from his hair. "Are you safe now?" I whispered, my voice shaking. "I promise you, I will never let anyone hurt you again." He looked up at me, small hands clutching my coat. "Really?" "Really," I said, holding him close. For the first time, I didn't feel like the outlaw Jace Callahan. I felt like something more. Something I had thought I'd never be, a father. The sun rose over Silver Creek, painting the desert in gold and amber. For the first time in years, I felt a quiet that wasn't forced, a calm that didn't carry the weight of chains or gunfire. My son and I sat on a small ridge overlooking the town, the wind tangling his hair as he leaned against me. "I'm glad we made it," he said softly, looking up at me with trust and something I could barely name. "Hope. Me too." "Kid," I said, my hand brushing the top of his head. "Me too." The world hadn't magically become safe, and I knew there would still be challenges ahead. But for the first time, I wasn't facing them alone. I had him, my son, my blood, and I had the chance to do right by him, to be the man I should have been from the very start. We made our way into town, careful to avoid the eyes of anyone who might recognize me. The people of Silver Creek went about their lives, unaware of the storm that had passed over their streets. I found a small cabin on the outskirts, modest, sturdy, and far enough from prying eyes to keep us safe. As we settled in, I showed him the little things, how to start a fire, how to check the horizon, how to survive without running blindly. He was quick to learn, but more importantly, he began to laugh again. That sound, bright, innocent, was like a balm to the wounds I carried. That night, under a sky full of stars, I held him close. "I'm sorry I wasn't here before," I whispered. "But I'll be here now, always." He buried his face in my chest and murmured, "I know." For the first time, I allowed myself to hope. The past was behind us, the shadows of my outlaw life slowly fading. The future wasn't promised, but it was ours to shape together. And in the quiet of that desert night, I made a vow. Not to the world, not to anyone else, but to him. No one would ever take you from me again, not the law, not men with guns, not even time itself. We had found each other, and that was enough. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more unforgettable tales from me. And make sure to tap the bell icon so you never miss a new episode. Thanks for watching.